I'm here today with Sister Carmel Pattinson in Richmond, and Sister Carmel has very kindly agreed to be one of the Sisters of the North ambassadors to help roll out our funds to affected producers. But I'm going to get onto that soon, that topic in a minute, but I really was keen to find out about Sister Carmel's life and what led her to the church, because of course she's a Catholic nun in the town of Richmond with the, what order are you with?
Sisters of the Good Samaritan.
Sisters of the Good Samaritan.
Of the Order of St Benedict, so it's got a Benedictine connection.
Where did you grow up?
Kelly, I was born and lived my first 20 years in Ayr in North Queensland. Went to school there, and that's where I met the Sisters of the Good Samaritan.
So you were brought up as your family were a Catholic family?
Catholic family, 9 kids, a good Catholic family.
Catholic family, yeah.
And Dad was an engineer, and Mum and Dad, neither of them had much opportunity to extend their education, but they really had a dream that we kids, no matter what sacrifices they made, that they would provide opportunity for us to have education. So at the end of year 10, there was no Catholic school to year 12, so I had the good fortune to go to St Mary's College, Charters Towers, to do 2 years of year 11 and 12.
So as a boarder?
As a boarder, yes. Okay. And we got scholarships in those days on our results. And my older sister had been there and I went there too, which is really good, because often out here in Richmond you meet people who've got a connection with many of those colleges in Charters Towers. You know, it's now Columba College, the one I went to. But there were 6 colleges there when I went there. It was a great time, because we had lots of interactions with debating, and it was a great 2 years actually. Yeah,
and I guess going when you're a little bit older too, it in a way makes it easier for homesickness, do you think? Because our kids go to boarding school when they're little.
Yes,
they suffer homesickness terribly. Yes. So did you find that?
We didn't. No, not really. I think being little bit more mature, and having had an older sister who had already paved the way. Yeah. So yes, I enjoyed the 2 years.
Yeah. So what did you do when you finished school?
Well, I was keen to go to Teachers College, which is what I did. And in those days, the olden times, there was no Teachers College in Townsville, so I flicked to Brisbane for Kelvin Grove College for a year, and I guess it was during that year that I was nudged to sort of say, well, through the Good Sams, through their sort of vocation ministry, had I considered, and I had been considering over the years, but my mum and dad felt it would be better to be qualified before I went seeking otherwise. Yeah. But as it turned out, I decided after 12 months in Brisbane that I'd give it a go. I'd see if this was a calling for me, because I suppose I saw...
It is a calling, isn't it?
I believe it is, yeah.
And you're led. Do you believe that?
By the Spirit, I do believe, yes. And my attitude then was, well, look, if this isn't for me, I mean, probably not the healthiest attitude now, but, I'll go and give it a go, and if it's not for me, well, I'll come out and, do what other people do and get married or whatever. But I went to Sydney, the biggest shock of my life, because I was a country bumpkin, really, had never been down to the big city life, and began a formation program in Sydney with 16 others, so it was kind of... and
is that to help you test the waters in a way?
It was. It's called a novitiate, which was, it's about, having to, just seeing if it's suitable for you. Is the call really of God, and is it right for me psychologically, spiritually, emotionally?
And how long is that process?
That was 2 years, 6 months postulancy, like pre-novitiate, then 2 years of full-time preparation, which was, included things like scripture, theology, and also some other. We continued doing some teacher training as a thread of it as well. And this was at Pennant Hills in Sydney. And after 2 years, 2.5 years, you were, if it was deemed acceptable and you felt it was right for you, you made your first profession, which then you continued on to do whatever academic training was going to be required, and I was still keen to be a teacher, so we had a teachers college in Sydney then at Glebe. So we moved from Pennant Hills to Glebe, most of us in those days, because anyone who joined the Good Sam's, this is going back a number of years now, they would have generally had an interest in teaching. So, so that was, we were a teaching order.
Right, you know, you're saying about you thought in the beginning, you know, if it doesn't work out, but you really, when you're young, it's so hard to know what you want to do, and it's good to have options. If what you think is going to be for you, if that doesn't end up, it's good to have a way out. So that is really important. And I guess you thought, well, I'll give it the 2 years, and
I did. And you know, Kelly, in the group of 16, there were about 6 that did the journey up to first profession, which just tells you that, like, it was a real testing time, and like, it was really hard when people left, because it was kind of it was before all the changes in the church had come. We were at the cusp of the change just after I joined up, and there was a custom where if someone made up their mind they were leaving, you never got to say goodbye. So it was a terrible, terrible thing. It doesn't happen anymore, but it was kind of just so inhuman. And so we were affected pretty keenly by the number of departures, which we kind of...
So would you just get up one morning and
there was
someone
a blank seat in the chapel, in the prayer?
And were you allowed to ask? Or?
Oh, well, you kind of got a bit of information. Majella went home last night or whatever. But it just was so... so difficult, and I really thought, I knew I was a nonconformist, and I thought, I don't think I can hack this for too long. But anyway, there was something there. The changes came in 1965. We had what we call the Second Vatican Council, and the changes filtered through to religious orders by the late 60s. And so there was some good news on the horizon, and I guess that's been the blessing for me in religious life, because I've gone from strength to strength into ministries where, you know, they've been cutting edge some of the time, and I've had opportunities to further study and serve the people of God wherever I've been appointed to go, or where I've chosen to be interviewed for a particular position. So,
and I guess in a way, those changes bring the Catholic Church more into the modern world.
That's right.
And moving with the times.
Yes.
Sister Carmel, I just want to ask what in particular your parents thought of you joining the order.
Well, they were very supportive. Mum was of Catholic background. My dad converted to Catholicism when he married Mum, and he had an attitude of, you know, he had a very simple faith. If it's God's will, no, we won't stand in the way. And so that was quite extraordinary. And I was the second eldest of 9 children, so in those days, I think it wasn't uncommon with a big family that someone might have an interest in religious life. That seemed to be a little bit of a situation in the country town that I came from, and it's very different today again. But yeah, they were extremely supportive.
Because you give up a traditional life.
Yes.
For God, don't you?
Yes. It was quite.
And what changes have you seen within the church, I guess, and since you...
Well,
in all your years?
In all my years, I suppose. I just mentioned the Vatican Council, where the changes were promulgated, but many people were slow to pick them up. But in our congregation, we're always strong on a sense of equality, a voice for women. I mean, we've come some distance, there's still a long way to go. The fact that ministry could be shared by all the people who are baptised, not just the priest or the bishop, but religious lay people. And that's probably been the biggest move, that, you know, we're by our baptism, we're all called to ministry. And, you know, and I guess as I've ministered full-time in parishes, part of my goal always was to empower people, to help them uncover or discover their gifts, and then train them or mentor them to be able to use their gifts within the church structure, so that we can all be strengthened and unified. And I saw in the places I worked in parishes, I was rather lucky to always come across, well, I chose to work in a collaborative model where these kind of principles could be actioned, because there are many parishes still wouldn't have been moving along at such a pace.
Right. And that would be very frustrating for someone like you. Who,
Yes, it was. It could be, but I suppose I had the privilege and the opportunity to come along at the time when jobs were being sought, or when we were looking for positions, that I wasn't just on the checkerboard and I was told I'd move from Avalon to Melbourne, say. It was more looking at, what are your competencies and talents, and where do you think you're being called to minister?
Wow.
So
isn't that amazing?
it is. That's a big change. That was
yeah.
a big change, and I've just been thankful, because from the time I went to Melbourne in 1979, I was a primary school teacher then, and I was going to teach in the primary school, but there was a need in the parish community for support in the Catholic state schools, catechetics and all that. And so within the 6 years I was there, after 3 years I moved from working in school to working full-time in parish.
Thanks so much for watching our video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please try to remember to just click on the subscribe button so we can keep you updated with everything that's happening. Thank you.